February 1945. A city of art becomes a furnace of death. Is this liberation or a massacre? Known as the Florence on the Elbe, Dresden was a masterpiece of human culture until the sky turned black with Allied wings. Nearly 4,000 tons of incendiaries created a firestorm so intense it sucked the oxygen from the lungs of anyone left alive. 25,000 civilians were extinguished in a single night. This wasn't just war, it was an inferno of human suffering. Dresden remains a dark scar on the conscience of history, because even the victors bear blood on their hands. Dresden, the Florence of the Elbe, turned into a furnace of ash and screams in a single night. 85% of the city's cultural heart vanished, not by accident, but by design. Up to 25,000 lives extinguished, caught between the hammer of liberation and the anvil of total war. Was this a military necessity or a calculated terror to break a nation's soul? History is written by the victors, but even the brightest triumph carries the dark stain of blood. Dresden was not a military fortress. It was an open wound, bleeding art, history, and human souls into the Elbe River. When the smoke cleared, the world had to ask, is this justice, or is it a massacre hidden under the banner of liberation? 25,000 lives extinguished in a single night, not soldiers, but children, mothers, and the elderly. The victors write the history books, but they cannot wash the blood from their hands. Dresden is the shadow that haunts the triumph. History is not just black and white. It is the color of ash. Remember Dresden. But history is written by the victors, and in Dresden, the ink was made of ash. Was it a military necessity or a calculated strike to crush the German spirit? 25,000 souls vanished in a firestorm that turned oxygen into poison. Even in a righteous war, the line between hero and executioner can blur into darkness. Dresden remains a haunting reminder: when cities burn, morality often burns with them. Dresden, a cultural jewel turned into a hellscape in just one night. Tens of thousands were vaporized, leaving nothing but shadows on the pavement. When the smoke cleared, the world asked, was this a strategic necessity or a war crime? History is written by the winners, but even their ink is mixed with innocent blood. Dresden remains a ghost in the conscience of the victors, a fire that never truly goes out. Look closely at these ruins, for they hold a dark secret that the history books often whisper but never scream. In the firestorm of 1945, Dresden didn't just burn, its cultural heart was incinerated by those who claimed to be the liberators. Tens of thousands of civilians were silenced in a single night. A city of art turned into a graveyard of ash and bone. We are taught to see only the light of victory, but the fine line between liberation and mass destruction is written in blood. Dresden remains the haunting proof of a bitter truth. In the crucible of war, the victors also bear blood on their hands. The firestorm didn't just consume a city, it incinerated the very soul of the Florence on the Elbe in a single hellish night. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of lives were erased, leaving behind nothing but a sprawling graveyard of stone and ash. Was this the necessary price of liberation, or had the line between justice and calculated terror finally vanished? History is famously written by the victors, but these charred ruins scream a truth that no propaganda can hide. For when the smoke of 1945 finally cleared, the world realized one dark truth: the victors also bear blood upon their hands. Even decades later, the ghosts of Dresden whisper a haunting question: was this justice or a war crime? Captain Elias, a man of duty, now finds his soul burdened by the very victory he helped achieve. A cultural jewel, the Florence on the Elbe, reduced to a landscape of ash and skeletal structures. Behind every statistic lay a human life, buried under the weight of total war. History is written by the victors, but as Dresden proves, those who hold the pen also bear blood on their hands. 40,000 lives, an entire cultural legacy, incinerated in a single night of hellfire. Was this liberation or a war crime? Dresden was the Florence of the Elbe, a sanctuary of art and history turned into a scorched graveyard by Allied bombers. The line between defeating evil and becoming the monster you fight is thinner than a razor's edge. History is written by the victors, but the ghosts of Dresden prove that even the righteous bear blood on their hands. The fire has died, but the controversy remains. In the game of total war, there are no clean hands, only survivors and the silence of the dead. In the shadows of victory, the flames of Dresden whispered a dark truth. Some triumphs are written in blood. Known as the Florence of the Elbe, a jewel of culture was reduced to a skeleton of stone and ash within hours. 25,000 lives vanished, not soldiers but families caught in a hellscape they did not create. Was it a necessary blow to end the war, or a calculated terror meant to break a nation's soul? History is written by the winners, but even the victors must face the ghosts of the cities they burned. Dresden, a masterpiece of art and history, turned into a literal hell on earth within hours. The Florence on the Elbe vanished, replaced by a firestorm that melted the very stones of its cathedrals. Behind the smoke lay the bodies of tens of thousands, innocents who found no mercy in the fury of the clouds. Was this the price of liberation or an act of pure, calculated destruction? The line blurred in the soot. Dresden proves that in the ledger of total war, even the victor's hands are stained with the blood of the defenseless. Dresden, a masterpiece of art, turned into a masterpiece of ash. When the sky rained fire, even the victor's medals began to rust with blood. Liberation, or a calculated massacre disguised as war strategy? Tens of thousands of souls vanished in a single night of absolute hell. For in the ashes of Dresden, we learned that the path to victory is often paved with the bones of the innocent. In the final act of World War II, a jewel of European culture became a pyre. Was it liberation or a crime beyond words? Dresden, a city of art turned into a graveyard. Tens of thousands of civilians were erased in a single night of fury. A cultural masterpiece burned to the ground. Its history reduced to ash and molten stone by the very hands seeking to free it. The fine line between liberation and destruction was obliterated in the firestorm. There was no glory here, only heat. History remains a haunting mirror. It reminds us that even the victors bear blood on their hands. Lest we forget, history is written by the victors, but fire writes its own undeniable, terrifying truth. In February 1945, a cultural masterpiece was turned into a funeral pyre. This wasn't just war, it was an erasure. Tens of thousands of lives vanished in a single night, civilians caught in a storm of iron and phosphorus. Where is the line? When does the crusade for liberation transform into the sin of absolute destruction? Dresden remains the scar that will not heal, a reminder that in total war, even the hands of the righteous are stained with blood. Dresden, 1945. A masterpiece of art and architecture transformed into a literal hell on earth within hours. Tens of thousands of lives extinguished, not by combat, but by a storm of fire that melted the very asphalt beneath their feet. Even the victors stared in silence at the void they created, questioning the thin, blurred line between liberation and total destruction. The controversy remains. Was this a military necessity or a war crime hidden behind the banner of victory? History is written by the winners, but these ashes prove one haunting truth. The victors also bear blood on their hands. Dresden, the Florence of the Elbe, turned into an inescapable furnace in a single night. Tens of thousands didn't just die. They were erased by a firestorm that defied the laws of physics. Was this a necessary step to end the war, or a vengeful strike against a defenseless culture? In the silence of the morning, only ash remained where history once stood. History is written by the victors, but even their hands are stained with the soot of Dresden. Dresden, a jewel of culture, reduced to a furnace in a single night of fire and blood. Tens of thousands of innocent lives vanished, not by the enemy's direct hands, but by the relentless fury of the Firestorm. Captain Elias saw the truth. The line between liberation and total annihilation had blurred into the gray ash of Dresden. This wasn't just a military strike, it was a scar on the soul of humanity, proving the victors carry blood too. Because in the game of war, even the righteous can lose their way in the blinding smoke of vengeance. February 1945. Dresden wasn't just bombed. It was erased from existence in a whirlwind of fire and screams. The Florence of the Elbe, a jewel of European culture, turned into a literal furnace within hours. Over 25,000 lives vanished. Not soldiers, but families huddled in cellars that became their tombs. Was this the price of liberation, or a calculated act of terror against a dying regime? History is written by the victors, but even their pens are stained with the blood of Dresden. Dresden, a cultural masterpiece reduced to a furnace of ash in just one night. The Florence of the Elbe, a city of art and history, erased from existence by a rain of incendiary fire. Behind the statistics lay 25,000 lives, mothers, children, and refugees snuffed out in the inferno. Was this the necessary price of liberation, or a descent into the very darkness they sought to defeat? In the haunting echoes of Dresden, history reminds us even the victors bear the stain of blood on their hands. When the dust of Dresden settled, even the victors couldn't wash the ash of 30,000 souls from their hands. A cultural masterpiece burned to the ground in a single night, proving that beauty is no shield against the rage of war. Tens of thousands of civilians were consumed by a heat so intense it melted the very asphalt beneath their feet. We call it liberation. But looking at the charred corpses of children, the line between hero and monster begins to vanish. History is written by the winners, but let it be known, in the ruins of 1945, the victors also bore blood on their hands.